Sorry to keep you waiting. Complicated business. Complicated.
What do you think is the biggest domestic issue America faces?
Right now, the biggest domestic issue is our health.
Let me ask you what you think the biggest domestic priority is for you right now.
Ultimately, let me, and I'll tell you, it was happening. We created the greatest economy in the history of our country. And the other side...
You know that's not true.
Success is going to bring us together. We are on the road to success.
What is on the ballot here is the character of this country. Decency, honor, respect, treating people with dignity.
Broadcasting from Mustang News' Swanson studio on Cal Poly's campus and via Zoom, this is Election Night.
Hello and welcome to Mustang News special coverage of the 2020 general election. I'm Tessa Hughes.
And I'm Garrett Brown. Thank you for joining us tonight, where we will be covering both the national and local elections.
At the beginning of our show, as of 2 minutes ago, we currently have Biden leading with 131 electoral votes, but Trump is leading the popular vote with over 43 million votes, according to the New York Times.
One of the terms you will be hearing a lot tonight is the Electoral College. To help you better understand the Electoral College and how it works, here's Mustang News reporter Matthew Bornhorst.
One of the biggest stories in 2016 centered around the fact that Donald Trump lost the popular vote by 3 million votes, yet still became the president. This was only possible due to a quirk in the way that Americans choose their president. You've probably seen maps like these, with each state colored in red or blue with how they vote. This map doesn't show an overall count of how individuals voted. Instead, it's a map of the Electoral College. The US is unique in that it elects its national leader indirectly through the Electoral College, where each state is given delegates based off of representation in Congress, who then cast votes for president. There's 435 representatives, 100 senators, and 3 votes for DC, giving us 538 total electors. So each state gets 2 votes for each senator and a number based off of the number of House representatives they have. So California, with a large population, has 53 House representatives and 2 senators, giving it 55 delegates. Whereas smaller states like Wyoming and Vermont, with their small populations only having 1 representative each, still get 3 votes. And this gets us to some unequal representation. California, with its large population, has about 700,000 people per electoral college votes, whereas a state like Wyoming, with only 600,000 people in the state as a whole, still gets 3 delegates. All states then have a general election where they decide the party that will cast their electoral college votes. This is the election that happens on November 3rd. And what those maps show, these electoral college votes are not given proportionally. Instead, all states except for Maine and Nebraska have a winner-take-all system, in which the winner of the state's general election wins all of the electoral votes for that state. Maine and Nebraska give theirs out proportionally, based off of the general election. These electoral votes are cast by a panel of electors, which each party decides. So when you're voting for president, you're not really voting for a candidate, but the party that they're running for, who then sends their delegates to the Electoral College. This Electoral College actually happens sometime in December, when the president actually gets decided. So the election is never decided on election night anyway. Anytime that a news organization declares a winner, it's just based off of their projections. So what is the role of the Electoral College today? Well, proponents of the Electoral College say that it avoids the tyranny of the majority, arguing that the voices of the people in small states like Wyoming or Vermont won't be drowned out by large states like California. They also argue that it encourages coalition building, forcing candidates to gain broad support from all sides. But opponents of this system say that it doesn't help with any of these issues. They argue that the election only comes down to a handful of swing states, where the vote is close enough each election to matter to candidates. This means a small handful of states decide each election. In 2016, 2/3 of all campaign events happened in just 6 states, and Donald Trump spent 94% of his campaign in just 12. And that's going without mentioning some of the more extreme examples of what can happen in the Electoral College. Outside of 2016, there have been 4 other presidents who have been elected without winning the popular vote. And the Electoral College can actually be won with just 23% of the popular vote by winning a bare majority in the smallest states, thanks to the winner-take-all system. Proponents of the Electoral College also argue that it requires geographic diversity for the presidency, saying that candidates also must target many types of voters and can't just focus on population centers. However, the Electoral College can also be won by winning the 11 most populous states. And there's nothing about the Electoral College which requires geographic diversity. It's just happened that way. Even though support for the Electoral College has been waning since the 60s, it's still written in the Constitution. But people have been trying to subvert the Electoral College from within. 16 states, including California, controlling 196 electoral votes, have signed the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact, which has them pledging their electoral votes to the candidate who wins the popular vote, regardless of how their state votes. But this plan will only go into effect once they have a majority in the Electoral College, meaning 270 votes. So it could be a while. The Electoral College adds an extra step into how your vote gets counted, but even if you're in a deep red or deep blue state where it doesn't seem like your vote will matter for the presidency, the election still matters because there's a lot more to the ballot than just the presidential race. So your vote still matters, so get out and vote.
In this year's election, mail-in ballots and early voting were heavily encouraged for a myriad of reasons, a big one being the current COVID-19 pandemic. People are opting into early voting to avoid the lines on Election Day or mail-in ballots to avoid crowds and any close contact with other people in general.
One state where early voter turnout shattered records was Texas. According to USA Today, about 57% of registered voters in the state had already cast their ballots by this past Saturday, October 31st. They had a 9.6 voter turnout already, which is a 47% increase compared to the number of early 2016. Almost 735,000 more people have voted early in Texas than voted in the entire 2017 election, including on Election Day.
Locally, we are seeing a high early voter turnout as well, with almost double what San Luis Obispo County saw in 2016. Roughly half of the 184,000 registered voters in San Luis Obispo County had already voted ahead of today. That is roughly 92,000 early ballots cast. Ahead of the election in 2016, the county clerk's office only had about 55,000 early ballots, according to KCBX.
A popular local trend for early voting this year was ballot harvesting, which is when a designated person delivers a voter's mail-in ballot for them. Ballot harvesting is legal in the state of California as long as both parties, the voter and the deliverer, sign the back of the ballot.
The biggest way people are opting to vote early, however, is through mail-in voting and absentee ballots. Yet, despite people using this as a way to stay safe during the election and still use their voice, some states are setting limitations to the mail-in process. In Wisconsin, all absentee ballots must have been received by today, November 3rd, in order to be counted. If they are received after, whether postmarked by today or not, they will be discarded. State Democrats petitioned the Supreme Court to extend the deadline of when ballots could be received and counted as long as still postmarked by Election Day. According to the New York Times, it was argued that the recent pandemic had affected and slowed the United States Postal Service, which is why the receiving deadline should be prolonged. Wisconsin state officials said that the number of invalidated ballots, which is roughly 5% or 80,000 of the total votes cast, will have to be thrown out.
We've also heard from CNN that Wisconsin is throwing out ballots of individuals who have passed away during the time between when they cast their ballots and when their ballot was received. A young 20-year-old woman who had been battling cancer for almost a decade was excited to get to vote in this year's election, but she tragically died after mailing in her ballot. Under Wisconsin election law, her ballot was thrown out.
What makes cases like this interesting, Garrett, is the fact that Wisconsin is a swing state heading into the election. Prior to the 2016 election, Wisconsin had been blue since 1988. The last time they had voted for a Republican candidate was Ronald Reagan back in 1984.
Well, it looks like now Wisconsin is leaning towards President Donald Trump with a percent of 51.2 and 951,449 votes counted for him, where Joe Biden's holding steady at 47.3 with roughly 880,000 votes for him.
Wisconsin is not the only swing state this year. Like with any presidential election, we hear a lot about swing states or battleground states. These are the states that within the last 30 years usually don't affiliate with one party consistently.
The results from other states may come as a surprise tonight, but the states that have been consistently viewed as swing states in this election are as follows: Arizona, Georgia, Florida, Iowa, Michigan, Minnesota, Nevada, New Hampshire, North Carolina, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and stay with me, Wisconsin.
A lot of these states are swing states that have historically gone one way or the other and played a huge part in who has won the presidential election.
One of those key states has always been Florida, with 29 electoral votes at stake in Florida. It's one of the most important swing states. Trump cast his ballot there this last weekend. Florida has helped decide the election, and each year it's been a close race. Right now, Trump is leading in Florida with over 5.5 million popular votes.
In 2016, President Donald Trump won Florida over Hillary Clinton, but coming into this election, we could see a different result. Biden currently is leading in Minnesota, Arizona, and Iowa. According to Today, Donald Trump won these 3 states.
Polling is now closed in most states, except for Hawaii and Alaska, which won't close until 9 p.m. and 10 p.m. Pacific time. All right, well, to give you more of an explanation of how the democratic process works in this country, we're joined by Nick Bender, a forestry and natural resources junior with a minor in political science. So we're going to go over some of the battleground states as well as the impact they might have in deciding this year's election. So Nick, what do you have to say about what we've been seeing out of the battleground states so far in this election?
Well, I would caution this is a really weird election, so what we're seeing the early results, expect them to change. But the states that are the most competitive, the swing states, as you mentioned, we've got states like Florida is just always a battleground every single time there's an election. Famously in 2000, the Bush versus Gore race, it all came down to Florida, 500 vote margin, gave George W. Bush the presidency. So the swing states are the ones that are in play tonight. And Biden's kind of aggressively going into areas that Trump had won in 2016 and were strongholds for the Republicans. Trump won Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania by pretty slim margins. That got him over the hump to be the president. But right now, Biden in polling pretty consistently has had a lead. We'll see how that materializes tonight.
So what do you think the impact of this election is going to be on the country?
Well, this is a really, really divisive election. Lots of fear and trepidation coming into it. I think that the impact, no matter who wins, is going to be pretty long-lasting. We're going to be still divided for the time being, unfortunately. Wish it would be different, but you got both sides are pretty strong sticking their candidate. And of course, Donald Trump has called into question if he loses, whether he'll accept the results. And I would expect if he wins through going to the Supreme Court or if there's some errors and other changes with mail-in balloting, a lot of the Democrats probably are going to have a big problem with that. So I would expect the country to stay divided, unfortunately, in the time being.
So, Nick, we already kind of know how the international community views Donald Trump during his presidency. How do you think internationally President Biden would be viewed?
Well, President Biden, Joe Biden is kind of a known quantity on the international stage. He was the chair of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee for a long time. He's a big proponent of restoring our relationships with our traditional U.S. allies in Europe, which have kind of fallen by the wayside during the Trump era. And I would also expect more engagement with international institutions like the United Nations and NATO, which have kind of also fallen by the wayside with Trump as president. And I would expect to the kind of rising autocrats in Central and Eastern Europe and Asia and throughout the world, it would be met with kind of worrying because they don't have a strong ally in the U.S. anymore. Donald Trump has been pretty open to their interests.
It's become very divided in our country. And leading up to this campaign, there's been, let's put it this way, a lot of negative rhetoric. But regardless of who wins, do you think the president will be able to unite the country, or will the president divide us even further?
It depends on what happens. And I think a lot of it has to do with how this election will play out. If it's a really close election, I would expect to be divided for the time being. If it comes down to the Supreme Court or there's a lot of ballots thrown out. But I think Joe Biden has made pretty overt efforts to get with the Republicans. The Democratic National Convention had several Republican speakers. A former Republican presidential candidate, John Kasich, was a speaker. So the Biden camp is definitely making an effort to reach out to Republicans. The same can't really be said for the Trump camp. They're pretty isolationist when it comes to the Republicans, but despite those efforts, I think that a lot of people have chosen their side and are going to stick with it for the time being.
So, Nick, we've got some early exit polls right now, and President Trump is still currently trailing Joe Biden, but he was creeping back in there for a second. Biden just got a big boost by sweeping the entire West Coast of Washington, Oregon, and California. How significant is it right now that Biden's leading the electoral vote?
I think it's really significant. When it comes down to it, the election's not over until all the ballots are cast, but kind of the rhetoric that we've been hearing from Donald Trump is that whoever's leading on election night, traditionally, whoever's leading on election night is a good indication of who's going to win. But of course, with mail-in ballots, it takes a lot longer to process them. California has a lot of experience with mail-in ballots, and in past elections that are really tight, it takes several days, even up to a week, to count all of them. But I think the Democrats will be happy if Joe Biden has a lead throughout tonight, because that will kind of nullify the arguments that if they do end up winning, it is illegitimate because it happened after election night and into the next few days.
Well, all right. Thank you for joining us tonight, Nick, and for providing us your insight on the current election. I hope you have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you. You as well.
Now, back on the topic of swing states, one swing state that Trump and Biden weren't able to directly go to and campaign this year was outer space. Due to a special law passed in Texas back in the 90s, astronauts on the International Space Station are able to vote while they're afloat, according to KSBY News. The law requires that astronauts select which local, state, and federal election they want to vote in roughly a year ahead of their launch. Then, 6 months before the election, the local election board sends them an absentee ballot to an address marked low Earth orbit through the care of NASA. The ballot is then delivered virtually to the astronaut, and once filled out, NASA is responsible for returning it to the local election board.
According to the Washington Post, astronaut Andrew Morgan voted from space earlier this year for election in his home county of Lawrence County, Pennsylvania. The ballot they provided him was encrypted and required him to enter a passcode known only to him. Also, astronaut Kate Rubins is the latest NASA official to vote from orbit, where she even created her own version of a voting booth so she could feel a little closer to home. Despite being able to vote from space, one key aspect of the elections that astronauts are missing out on are the iconic I voted sticker that accompanies ballots here. All right, well, we're going to take a quick break, but when we get back, we'll hear from Mustang News' own Kylie Smith, live at the county clerk's office, so stick around.
Have questions about the coronavirus?
I'm here to share some simple steps you can take to help protect yourself and others.
Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Wash your hands often with soap and water for 20+ seconds.
Cover your cough or sneeze with a tissue.
Clean and disinfect surfaces and objects. Wash hands after touching commonly used items.
Together, we can help slow the spread.
Hey! There are amazing things to discover in the forest.
Toothless, time to go! What you picking up on, bud?
It's a whole hidden world of wonders. And the perfect place to spend time with family. What better place to let your imagination soar? Experience nature and create a memory you can share. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a forest or park near you.
Patriotism. It inspires passionate debate. It's worn like a badge of honor with good reason, because it means love and devotion for one's country. But what really makes up this country of ours? It's the people. To love America is to love all Americans. This year, patriotism shouldn't just be about pride of country. It should be about love. Love beyond age, sexuality, disability, race, religion, and other labels. Because love has no labels.
Operation Wonder Park is a go!
There's nothing more powerful than imagination.
Honey, have you seen my cell phone?
But don't just imagine.
My park came to life?
Ooh, a plot twist!
Use STEM to build. Create.
She did it!
And change the world.
Who's with me?
I'm more of a 2 feet on the ground kind of guy.
It's gonna
gonna hurt tomorrow.
If she can STEM, so can you. Find out more at She Can STEM.
Welcome back to Mustang News 2020 election coverage. Thank you for staying with us. Now we will go live to Kylie Smith at the county clerk's office. How does it look out there, Kylie?
Hello, Tessa, and good evening. I am here live at the San Luis Obispo County Clerk's office, and voting ended at 8 p.m., but voters are still trickling in, it looks like. I'm going to get to talk to volunteers and county workers who have been here all day counting these ballots tirelessly. And one of these volunteers is Bonnie Kennedy. Bonnie, why don't you come on in here with me? Hi, Bonnie. How are you feeling today? Good. Good. And what time were you here? I got here at 11, but most of the workers got here at 6:30. Okay, so it's been a long day for a lot of people. And can you talk a little bit about what you'll be doing here tonight?
Tonight we'll be taking the boxes from the drop-off outside and the drop-off inside, and we're going to count them into packs of 50, and then seal them in an envelope that'll hold it.
Great. Wow. Sounds like a good night ahead. Long night. And what are some of the CDC guidelines due to COVID-19 while you're working here?
Well, everyone had enough masks. We have a lot of cleaning of all the booths for the walk-in people that were doing live ballots. Wiping down everything. Everyone was very nice and followed the CDC guidelines, and so it worked out very well.
That's really good to hear. Do you think these restrictions have affected voter turnout at all?
So we had more drop-offs probably outside by vehicle and walk up to the, rather than vote in person. So we have a lot of that, and happy we have a lot of Cal Poly students come by.
Yay, that's good to hear. We love to hear it. And what would you say the overall attitudes of voters coming in here today is like?
Lovely. Everybody, is very cordial, patient. We have a steady stream all day.
That's great.
Two of them.
And how late do you think you'll be here tonight?
We'll probably be here till maybe 9:30, 10, and then the other county workers come and maybe they work all night.
Well, good luck, and
thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It was great talking to you, Bonnie. And I will be here at the county clerk's office till 10 p.m. giving you updates as they come. Thank you so much, and back to you, Garrett and Tessa in the studio.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Kylie. Just moving on to a little bit of a lighter subject matter. So Tessa, as you know, primarily I actually work as a sports reporter for Mustang News. So let's just kick it over to that world for a little bit. Fun fact, the NCAA has actually given all Division I, II, and III athletes the day off in hopes of getting a large voter turnout amongst student athletes. And here at Cal Poly, 100% of the student athletes actually are registered to vote, thanks in large part to a campaign put together by Cal Poly Athletics. Just a really cool thing the school's doing, huh?
That's really cool. I didn't even know they were doing that. I didn't even know about the NCAA either.
All right, well, we'll go ahead and take a look at the polls that are coming in right now. We just got word that Trump is ahead in the state of Florida. In 2016, Trump won Florida. It also looks like California is blue again, which isn't a surprise and was expected since California has been a Democratic state since 1992 when Bill Clinton won. We also just got word that the swing state of North Carolina is leaning red by just a little less than 2%, according to the New York Times. In 2016, President Trump won the same state with a percentage of 49.83% of the vote, and 15 electoral college votes.
Now, Texas is another big state to watch this year. According to the New York Times, a Democrat has not carried Texas since 1976. The polls are suggesting a highly competitive race right now. Right now, that we are seeing that Trump is leading Texas with 51.8%, and Biden is trailing with 46.8% of the votes.
More swing states to watch out for are Ohio and Nevada. Nevada is one of those swing states that can go either way. In 2016, Hillary Clinton won with a percent of 47.9% of the vote. According to the New York Times, a judge tonight extended voting in Nevada Clark County, which includes Las Vegas, which could further influence how the state turns out. As you can see here on the map, Nevada currently hasn't actually posted results yet, and in large part because of the extended voting. It has 6 electoral college votes, and it looks like Nevada has not yet posted results. What we're seeing in Ohio right now is that it's also leaning red, where Trump is ahead by about 8% in the lead. In 2016, we saw Donald Trump win this state with 51.3% of the vote and 18 electoral college votes. Ohio is a true swing state, voting 7 times for a Republican nominee and 5 times for a Democratic nominee in the last 12 elections. Ohio was blue for both of Barack Obama's presidential runs.
Thank you, and we will be right back after a short break.
I, Krista, take you, Jamie, to be my wife.
When we found out that we were pregnant, we were just elated. We were just sitting there waiting for the pediatrician. She said she won't be taking you in as a client.
We are a lesbian couple, but she's just a baby. She's the one you're denying the service to.
I came from 5 generations of teachers. Losing my job was the bottom falling out of my world.
Meals on Wheels gives me a chance to be totally selfless. More than the food itself, a lot of seniors don't have family. So just to have someone to talk to, just to say, hey, how was your day? That means so much more than a meal could ever mean. We have to look outside of ourselves to be that lifeline to other people. It's worth it.
Welcome back to Mustang News election coverage. As you know, today is election day, which makes it the last day to cast your vote. Hopefully you voted early, mailed in your ballot, or hit the polls today. Now let's watch a quick video about how to ensure that your vote counts.
As the election draws near, many voters will be filling out their ballots from home, and some have voiced concerns over what to do if they make a mistake. Instructions say voters should fill in bubbles completely and only use black or blue ink. In the event of a mistake, voters are advised to contact the Office of the Clerk Recorder and may have to receive a replacement ballot. County Clerk Recorder Tommy Gong says the office is trying to avoid sending out replacement ballots if possible. Instead, voters may be able to correct the mistakes themselves. According to Gong, voters that accidentally fill in the wrong bubble should write an X on the incorrect bubble and fill in the correct one.
That's perfectly fine, because we're going to look at the rest of the ballot as to how the voter typically voted, and then we're going to determine that the one with the cross out in it is not the position that they wanted filled out, or they changed their mind.
Gong advised voters not to check mark the bubbles or initial or sign next to their selections. Gong also advised to avoid leaving any stains or markings on the ballots.
It has a stain right here. In the timing marks are critical for the ballot. So if there is a pen mark that goes through the timing marks, or dirt there, or coffee stains there, those will be ones I'll have to duplicate. I know that for sure. The machine won't pick those up. The timing marks are everything along the perimeter of the ballot.
Voters can track the status of their ballots by going to where'smyballot.sos.ca.gov. For Mustang News, Kiana Hunziker.
So, seeing as the saying goes, history tends to repeat itself, I feel like we should kind of remember what happened in the year 2000. The race was between Republican George W. Bush and Democrat Al Gore. What made it interesting is that even though Gore had won Bush won the Electoral College, but lost the popular vote, similar to what happened with Donald Trump in 2016.
According to an NPR article, in 2000, the Electoral College vote was critical on election night. Florida was going to determine not only the winner of the state's 25 electoral votes, but also the next president of the United States. Gore had won the popular vote by about 500,000 ballots. The presidential count in 2000 was being measured in hundreds.
According to NPR, it ultimately came down to just 537 votes out of the 6 million cast. What followed was a 5-week war over the ballots, the law, the courts, and the rules. According to NPR, a main issue was confusing ballot marks for third-party candidate Patrick Buchanan. There was punch card ballots where the voters attempted to make their choice had only succeeded in detaching a portion of the paper called the hanging chads, rather than removing the punch out.
In a 5-4 vote, the justices declared Bush as the president. Now, with the election going forward in 2020, we could see a similar result with close calls.
In San Luis Obispo County, there were 23 in-person voting service centers and 19 drop-off locations for mail-in ballots until today, November 3rd. And hopefully, you all successfully filled out your ballots for this election. ASI hosted a Flex Your Right campaign to encourage students at Cal Poly to vote. And joining us right now, we have ASI President Shayna Lynch here to talk a little bit more about that. Shayna?
Hi, Shayna. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. Thanks for having me on the show tonight.
So can you tell us a little bit about how the Flex Your Right campaign worked and was it successful this year?
Yeah, so for years now, ASI student government has hosted the Flex Your Right voter registration campaign to ensure that students exercise their right to vote and stay civically engaged in the community and the country. By using the unique link provided by the campaign to register, students are able to indicate their association to Cal Poly. In 2018, we actually won the California Ballot Bowl competition, meaning that we registered the most students to vote out of any public or private university in California. Last year did not hold a ballot bowl, but we still registered over 2,000 Cal Poly students to vote, which was the most out of all universities in California. In order to encourage students to register to vote, we work to create connection points with housing, new student programs, clubs, organizations, and academic partners to effectively share information and find unique ways to engage and connect with students. In efforts to make the voter registration link available, we work with the university to have it displayed on the portal the 2 weeks leading up to the registration deadline. Some other notable efforts are sending campus-wide emails from the university president and myself, doing a lot of social media outreach, and having a street team who's available to give a virtual presentation of voter registration to any class or organization. And this year we actually partnered with ASI Events to host a voter education week, where each day was focused on providing students with fun opportunities to be educated about the importance of voting. During this week, we had a leadership and civic engagement discussion with the co-host of NPR's Code Switch podcast, Shireen Marisol Meraji. And it was definitely difficult shifting the campaign over to a virtual setting, but we were still successful in doing it. One thing we really kept in mind with it was that due to the national climate right now, a lot of students were more keyed in about voter registration than ever before. So we really worked on reaching out to groups that aren't typically as inclined to register to vote in order to really get them interested in civic engagement. And then moving past just voter registration and the Flex Your Right campaign, we move into our Know Your Vote campaign, which was viewable on the Cal Poly portal leading up to the election. And this campaign provided students with information of what would be on the ballot, how to vote, and where to cast your ballot.
Well, so as the ASI president, other than the ballot bowl you already mentioned, what were some of the main reasons behind pushing a campaign to get such heavy student involvement?
Yeah, so students statistically vote at lower rates in elections, and this is something that we've identified for years that wanting to work on to change. Participating in both elections and civic engagement past just elections can definitely be confusing to navigate, and so as student government, we want to help students through that process. Thus, we focus our campaign on educating students on how to register to vote, and how to stay engaged past just election day. Especially in the city of SLO, students can really dramatically influence the election of our mayor, our city council, and they make the decisions on issues which directly affect students. And this can be things such as parking, noise violations, or housing. And so we really want to help the student body to make sure that their voices are heard.
So what would you say the voter turnout was like on campus for both in-person voting and at the drop-off locations?
Unfortunately, I do not actually have those numbers. However, I can say that I've personally seen so many students this year stress the importance of voting on social media. I've seen a lot of social media stories of students wearing the I voted stickers or while dropping off their ballots or mailing it in. And so I'm really hopeful that a good number of students voted. And I think it's also important to keep in mind that not all students are in SLO. And so there's a lot of students in their hometowns, a lot of students out of state. And so having that push, no matter where your location is super important. And it seems like a lot of students have turned out to vote for this election.
Now, obviously, this is an election that's created a lot of emotion and tension and anxiety in people. How do you think the outcome of this election is going to affect Cal Poly's student body?
Yeah, so this election, there's so much on the line for so many students. Students are fearing for their rights, their families, and even their lives. And so I think either way that this election goes, the stress, it's not really going to go away. I've seen a rise in students being just fed up with the two-party system because they don't feel as though our government advocates for them, even if their preferred candidate wins. And the results of this election, with them, we must remember that they're just a reflection on our country. And so it's not just about who wins the election, but it is about what message as a country we are putting forward. And that message may not be welcoming to all students. The stress of this election and the feelings of being overwhelmed, those are going to continue far past today. And so it's important to reach out to those you care about and ask how you can be there for them during this time and make them feel safe and supported.
So what propositions would you say in California do you think will affect Cal Poly students the most?
Yeah, so as a predominantly white institution, I think Prop 16 is super important. It would help open the doors to using legal affirmative action methods in our admission process. So that could really help our school and our diversity and inclusion dramatically. Prop 16 helps level the playing field, and for this reason, ASI Board of Directors, the Cal State Student Association, and the CSU Board of Trustees endorsed it. In the ASI endorsement 20-01, we stated that the purpose of this endorsement was to officially support Prop 16, the repeal of Prop 209, the Affirmative Action Amendment, and that amendment would support Cal Poly's diversity efforts. And then from the CSSA and the Board of Trustees, when they endorsed it, the Board of Trustees is really hopeful that the 23 CSU campuses will be able to rethink the current processes they have in place and provide a more inclusive environment when it comes to education and hiring.
All right, thank you so much, Shayna. That's all the time we have right now. We'll be right back with more election coverage after the break.
As the nation's doctor, I often get asked, what should I do if I think I might have coronavirus?
People who are sick should stay home. You don't go to an emergency room, you don't go to a clinic. You get on the phone and you ask for advice and instructions from your physician.
We don't want you to go into the ER or the doctor's office without talking to them first because you might spread coronavirus to someone else. Please visit coronavirus.gov for more information.
Let me tell you about the toughest guy on earth. He has the crazy strength to lift the man that raised him up without even flinching. This guy, no, this warrior, will always be by his father's side, even if his dad will hardly remember. If this guy isn't the toughest guy on the planet, then I don't know who is. Caregiving is tougher than tough. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving.
We scored? Yeah, we scored. We're going to the playoffs. I can't believe I missed that. Every time I'm buzzed, I spend too much time on my phone. What? I should take your phone away. No. I'll call for a ride. Hey, why does my face look like that?
I'm playing with these new face filters.
Okay, you know what? Yep, that's mine. I'm gonna need that back. No. Kevin!
Bye-bye.
Hi. Hoping for a crisp breeze to help keep you alert. Oh, he took a sip of water too. That'll probably help.
You were probably going to turn down the radio too, so you could focus, right?
probably okay isn't okay.
Right.
If you see a warning sign, stop and call a cab, a car, or a friend.
I think the water line is what really drove it home. I blew on him.
Welcome back. Now, before we head over to Kylie again, we just want to give you an update. Currently, locally, in the mayoral race, incumbent Mayor Heidi Harmon is leading with 55%, and Cherie Sweeney, who is seen as Harmon's biggest competition, is trailing with 31% of the votes. Then, at a national level, Joe Biden is still in the lead with 209 electoral votes, and Donald Trump has 118 electoral votes.
And like we said earlier in the program, Biden got a big boost from sweeping the entire West Coast, taking Washington, Oregon, and California, and that definitely widened the gap he had going for him. Now we're going to head back to Kylie Smith, who's down at the county clerk's office in downtown San Luis Obispo. Kylie?
Hello, Garrett. I am here live at the San Luis Obispo County Clerk's office. And for those of you just tuning in, we have counted about 110,000 votes here tonight. And I am joined by Tommy Dong, County Clerk Reporter. Tommy, why don't you step on in here with me? And I was just wondering, how has the night been? How has the day been? I know these days could be pretty hectic.
Well, it's been 4 days of voting, not just one day. So, we've had an election day for the last 4 days. And so, I'm really looking forward to the end of tonight.
Yeah, I bet.
It's a culmination, really, of like 6 months of planning and preparing. Many changes that occurred for this election in light of the coronavirus. And so, really, we've had to accommodate and make all of these changes.
Can you talk about some of those changes and accommodations in
Yeah.
response to the COVID-19 virus?
Sure, yes. One of the biggest things is every voter will receive a vote by mail ballot automatically. So that raised another 35,000 to 40,000 ballots going out. The number of ballots being returned to vote by mail was unprecedented. So as of Halloween, we already have 110,000 ballots received. And, we have more coming in the next couple of days that are coming from the polls tonight.
That's great. And just the overall morale of what voters have been coming in and attitudes, what have you seen?
Yeah, actually, the voters have been very, very appreciative of all the changes that we've had to accommodate. So that's really been, we've really seen a lot of appreciation by the voters, really expressing their gratitude to all of our election workers.
That is great to hear. And I will be here again live all night till 10 p.m. at the San Luis Obispo County Clerk's office. Thank you so much for Mustang News. I'm Kylie Smith. Back to Garrett and Tessa in the studio.
Thank you, Kylie, for that update. Speaking of the polls, residents of California also voted on 12 ballot measures this election. Matthew Bornhorst is back again with more about those props everyone voted on and what they mean.
The election is happening right now, and there's more to the ballot than just the presidential race. So let's take a look at another section, the ballot propositions. A renewal of 2004's Prop 71, Prop 14, if passed, would add $5.5 billion in bonds for stem cell research in California. Opponents say that Prop 71 was a product of its time, and funding for these projects should now come from the federal government. Prop 15 seeks to increase funding for schools and local governments by increasing property taxes on commercial and industrial properties, taxing them at market rate instead of being taxed on the purchase price. If passed, Prop 16 would repeal 1996's Prop 209, which prohibited discrimination or preferential treatment on the basis of race, sex, color, ethnicity, or national origin. Prop 209, effectively banning affirmative action in the state, has seen wide criticism recently. Proposition 17 is proposing a new amendment to the California Constitution, which would allow convicted felons on parole to vote. California would join 19 other states in allowing felons on parole to vote. Currently, they are one of only 3 states requiring felons to complete their prison and parole sentences before regaining the right to vote. Prop 18, if passed, would allow 17-year-olds who would be 18 for that year's general election to vote in primary and special elections. Prop 19, if passed, would change how homeowners are taxed when they move. It would allow homeowners who are over 55, disabled, or victims of a wildfire or another disaster to save on property taxes when they move, by keeping the tax rate of their previous property even if they move to a more expensive house. but it also limits the savings for inherited properties unless they are lived in as the primary residence. Prop 20, if passed, would list more crimes as violent felonies, increasing prison sentences and penalties for theft-related crimes like shoplifting. It would also mandate DNA collection for other misdemeanors. Currently, DNA collection is only mandated for arsonists and sex offenders. Prop 21, if passed, would give local governments greater leverage to pass rent control bills and control more properties. This is aimed at reducing homelessness by giving governments greater control over the housing market. Prop 22 is one of the most controversial propositions on the ballot this year. It's attempting to classify app-based drivers, think drivers for Uber, DoorDash, or Lyft, as independent contractors instead of true employees. This prop is backed by Uber and other app-based companies who say it allows drivers more flexibility in their work, but opponents argue that it's just a way for these companies to avoid providing benefits for the drivers who work for them. Another controversial proposition with major corporate donors on both sides, Prop 23 would require all dialysis clinics to have a doctor on site. Proponents say that this would improve care in all the clinics, especially in those in poor and minority neighborhoods where dialysis clinics are the most needed. While dialysis companies like DaVita argue that it puts an undue economic burden on clinics, which could cause many to fold. Prop 24, if passed, would amend current consumer privacy laws, which would prevent businesses from using sensitive personal information or sharing other personal information. It would also establish a new state agency to enforce these new laws. Prop 25, if passed, would eliminate cash bail in California. Cash bail criticized for keeping poor and minority citizens in jail who don't have the money for bail. And it would be eliminated in favor of a public safety and flight risk assessment to determine whether or not a defendant should be kept in jail until their trial. Is just a short overview of the propositions, and there's a lot of great resources online, including California's official voter information guide and ballotpedia.com. So get educated and go vote.
Welcome back. Well, now we're going to take a look at what we're seeing on the propositions from this year's California ballot. Prop 14, a support bond for stem cell research, is currently voting yes by 53%. In the meantime, Prop 15, which is a change for taxes to fund California education, is also a yes, but only by 1%, 51 to 49.
And what we're seeing for Prop 16 about affirmative action, has yes by up 4%, but 67,000 votes. 67,280 votes, sorry.
Yeah, so Tessa, what's interesting about Prop 16, especially for Cal Poly students, is we are a school made up of majority white students, and this prop would repeal Proposition 209 from 1996, which said states cannot discriminate based on race, sex, or color, or ethnicity, or national origin for public employment, public education, and public contracting. We've seen a lot of protests in San Luis Obispo calling for racial equality, and protesters have also called for gender equality. So a no on this could cause some backfire, wrong expression, from some Cal Poly students.
I agree, Garrett. I think this will make a difference here and on campus and in the college application process in general. For many students across California, according to the New York Times, voting yes on Prop 16 is supported by Governor Gavin Newsom and Vice Presidential nominee Kamala Harris. We're going to have a quick commercial break. When we come back, we'll have more election coverage about San Luis Obispo mayoral debate.
When you adopt a shelter pet, you discover their unique mix of all kinds of traits.
Where'd Wiley go? Where's Wiley? Ah, there she is. Paw?
Do you remember being an ancient wolf? Do you ever feel the call of the wild?
You're a renegade cop, and I'm a con woman with nothing to prove. But together, we could really solve this murder.
They're a little bit of a lot of things, but all of them are pure love.
Oh, sweetie. Okay, you know what? Let's
Let's take off his sweatshirt. Get rid of pictures of him. You don't have to look at him. Goodbye, Dave.
Mom, you don't understand. He's tagged in like 400 of my posts.
I can cut out tags.
No, that's not how it works.
What is a tag?
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care would love to share their first with you.
Visit aarp.org/caregiving for information on how to provide even better care for the person who wants to care of you.
Welcome back. Now, so I misreported in the last block. So the Prop 16 is ahead by 67,000 votes, but not by 4%. They're actually ahead very significantly. 67,000 votes no and 38% yes. Now, we all know that the two primary candidates for president are incumbent Donald Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden. However, there are 9 other candidates on the ballot this year, but not all of them made it onto the ballot in every state. There's Howie Hawkins for the Green Party, Joe Jorgensen for the Libertarian Party, Gloria La Rivera for the Peace and Freedom Party, and Rocky De La Fuente Guerra for the American Independent Party, Don Blankenship for the Constitution Party, Brock Pierce and Jade Simmons are both trying to represent the Independent Party, Kanye West for the Birthday Party, and Brian T. Carroll for the American Solidarity Party.
Libertarian candidate Jorgensen is running for the hope of achieving a much smaller government and is on the ballot in all 50 states. Green Party candidate Hawkins is one of the co-founders of the party and was the first U.S. candidate to campaign for the Green New Deal back in 2010. He wants a socialist economy and is on the ballot in 29 states and in Washington, D.C. Candidate La Rivera is running for the Peace and Freedom Party and has run for either president or vice president 9 times prior to this election. She represented a communist party that wants to make the government a socialist regime run by working people and is on the ballot in 15 states and in D.C.
La Fuente Guerra, the representative for the American Independent Party, is a millionaire businessman who has previously run for mayor of New York, the U.S. House in California, and the U.S. Senate in 9 different states. He has been a member of various political parties, even founding the American Delta Party, and he is on the ballot in 16 states. Blankenship, according to KUTV, is regarded as as the most hated man in West Virginia and is a former CEO of the coal giant Massey Energy. He has spent 1 year in prison for willfully violating safety standards in the Upper Big Branch mine explosion of 2010 that killed 29 people, and he is on the ballot in 18 states. Then there is famous entertainer Kanye West, who is representing the Birthday Party. West previously endorsed President Trump, and he has admitted to being ignorant about important issues such as taxes and foreign policy. West is on the ballot in 12 states, and in some states he is listed as a running mate for La Fuente Guerra.
One of the Independent Party candidates, Pierce, is a former child actor famous for his role in the Mighty Ducks movie franchise and is one of the wealthiest people in the cryptocurrency world. He is on the ballot in 15 states and in D.C. The other candidate representing the Independent Party is Simmons, who is a classical pianist and has been crowned both Miss Chicago and Miss Illinois, and was eventually the first runner-up in the 2000 Miss America pageant. Simmons says she believes the separation of church and state, and says she wants her Christian principles to guide her. She's now on the ballot in 2 states. Lastly, there's Carroll, who's running for the American Solidarity Party. Carroll is an evangelical Christian whose platform is considered whole life, which is pro-justice, pro-peace, pro-life, and pro-earth. Carroll is on the ballot in 8 states.
Despite the various third parties, America's presidential race has been dominated by the Republican and Democrat parties for the past 170 years. According to KUTV, the last time a president was elected that wasn't a member of either of these 2 parties was in 1848 when Zachary Taylor from the Whig Party won. In 2016, Libertarian Gary Johnson received 4.84 million votes, winning 3.28% of the total vote, which was the most for any Libertarian candidate ever. Jill Stein, the 2016 Green Party candidate, won the most votes for her party ever as well, obtaining just over 1% with roughly 1.45 million votes.
1 week ago, Mustang News hosted a live mayoral debate with 3 candidates running for mayor of San Luis Obispo. Here's a look at some of the biggest moments from that.
I would have been having meetings with the police all along. That's something that we did. I have been a participant and an organizer of rallies in San Luis Obispo in the earlier days. I personally would have also educated and had an event or a training for all the activists that want to keep doing this. This could have happened without the problems that took place.
I had the opportunity to talk to them face to face and one-on-one and still have an open communication. And I think that's what's important with all of this. It becomes a fundamental breakdown in healthy communication. And when we don't cultivate that and have that, it's people stop listening and they stop, the good messages get diluted.
And so I have been standing in solidarity with folks that are sharing their voice and have been protesting and all of those sorts of things. I think it's essential to growing as a community. I think that we're really being called right now to listen and listen deeply and to act in a way that is, of course, nonviolent and in alignment with the aspirations of creating a city of belonging. So my sense is that there will be a conversation about reallocation of budgets, but it won't just be about reallocation. I can see sort of a 3-point plan being very effective here that would include establishing a civilian review board, investing in supportive crisis responders, so more social services type of things, and also focusing on data collection, really more deeply understanding how our police are engaging.
Before we start making some important decisions in statements such as defunding or reallocating, to dive into what they're really facing. And really I 100% agree that we absolutely need more social workers and social services on our police force. It is a really challenging task that they're faced with.
In terms of the arrests and the whole conversation about it, I would say two things. One, I agree with the Tribune and other sources about some of the concern around the tactics. As I've said, I don't want people on the freeway. I get that that's unsafe, but what I'm more focused on and what I would invite people to be more focused on is why.
Uh-oh.
NAGMA fact-checked some of the statements made by the candidates. Mayor Heidi Harman said that we closed an $8 million funding gap impacted by COVID to balance out the budget. This is true. However, she also said that San Luis Obispo has adopted the ambitious carbon neutrality goal of any city in the United States. This is false. According to the city website, their goal is to achieve carbon neutrality by 2035. And in June of 2020, the city of Menlo Park, California, set a goal to reach carbon neutrality by 2030. Moving on to candidate Sandra Marshall-Eminger, she told audiences that San Luis Obispo is the first city to be in non-smoking in the United States. According to a 2011 article from the CDC website, this is true. Marshall-Eminger also said that they cannot replace the trees that were cut down in the San Luis Ranch. However, this is false because trees can be replanted after 25 to 50 years. And according to the Tribune, the San Luis Obispo Ranch project plans to plant 1,400 native trees of various types in their place. And finally, Therese Sweeney made a comment that local activist Tiana Arata and Sweeney had a great conversation. But in response to those statements, Arata posted a statement on Instagram and wrote that the conversation was not as good as Sweeney said it was. To find out more about the debate, please visit mustangnews.net. That looks like all we have. We're going to kick it to another commercial break, but we will be right back, so stay with us.
With coronavirus spreading, people at higher risk must take extra precautions. You are at higher risk if you're over 65, or if you have an underlying medical condition like heart disease, chronic lung disease, diabetes, or if your immune system is compromised for any reason. If you're at higher risk, stay 6 feet or 2 arm lengths away from others. Better yet, stay home if you can. The choices you make are critical. Please visit coronavirus.gov for more information.
Most party fouls are pretty dumb. But if you decide to drink and drive underage, you could lose your license and your freedom. Underage drinking and driving. The ultimate party foul.
Hey, Bobo, do trees tell each other stories?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, why don't we go find out? Listen.
Can birds draw pictures?
I don't have an answer for that.
Dad, do stars visit their friends?
Look!
What do you think you're doing, Kevin?
Was just gonna drive home.
There are several warning signs present that you shouldn't be driving.
Like hearing voices?
Like your text-to-emoji ratio?
Oh man, the selfies. Selfie, nailed it.
We all have warning signs that let us know that we're probably not okay to drive. Mine is pretending to be your subconscious.
Craig, come on man, let's split a ride home.
Just cut it.
Welcome back to Hour 2 of election night coverage on Mustang News. Mustang News reached out to the Democrat and Republican Club for their insight on this election. The Republican Club did not respond to Mustang News, but let's take a look at what the Cal Poly Democrat Club had to say.
My name is Brian Craig, and I am currently the treasurer at the Cal Poly Democratic Club. Every 4 years, everybody says that this is the most important election of our lifetime, but I think with this year, this is truly the most important election of our lifetime, and that is really because of one prevailing thing that is occurring right now, and that is the COVID-19 pandemic. The COVID-19 pandemic has had such an impact on the lives and the way we conduct business, especially with Cal Poly, how in a matter of weeks we went from being in-person classes to having all either asynchronous or synchronous virtual classes. Biden would be the best president for our country because he is someone that has empathy. He is willing to listen to his constituents, and he has experience to take action on certain policies that the current president does not. For instance, with COVID, I know on his first day in office, he will institute a mask policy, making them mandatory. You still gotta go out there and vote. Every vote counts. I implore students to not just think about the presidential election when it comes to the ballot, because really one vote matters in a lot of the local races, such as we have a state senate race occurring this year between Laird and Norden. We have an assembly race occurring this year as well between the incumbent Cunningham and Agdis, which is going to be what I think is a really close race, because a lot of local elections have been decided on just a few votes. In fact, when Mayor Harmon was first elected back in 2016, when she ran against the incumbent Jan Marks, who right now is running for city council, she won by only 46 votes. So I encourage everyone, if you haven't voted already, to do the research on the candidates and the propositions, and just go out, fill it out, and fill out the absentee ballot and go vote. On November 3rd, you are the most powerful person, not the people in office, but you, the voter.
This year, San Luis Obispo has 8 candidates running for 2 open seats at San Luis Obispo City Council. City Council is composed of the elected mayor and 4 council members. The council sets the policies and legislation under which San Luis Obispo runs and operates.
According to the mayor and city council website, they have the authority to adopt ordinances and resolutions, establish policies, approve programs, appropriate funds, approve budgets, and approve contracts.
The mayor is elected to a 2-year term, while the city council members are elected to 4-year terms. Mustang News reached out to each candidate to hear what they had to say.
Hi, I'm Andy Pease, and I'm running for re-election to the San Luis Obispo City Council.
I'm a green building architect, and my vision for San Luis Obispo is sustainable, inclusive, and thriving. My priorities are economic recovery, housing affordability, and climate action. I'd appreciate your vote. AndyForSlow.com.
Hi, I'm James. Still haven't voted? Still don't know how to vote? Give me a call at 805-470-0983 and talk to me about your issues, and I'll talk to you about mine. Go to patforcouncil.com for policy on everything from climate change to police defunding, but why not talk to a real candidate?
Hello, I'm Jan Marks running for SLO City Council. If you enjoy hiking on Bishop Peak, you've got me to thank because I made it open to the public. Now for more open space and bike paths, vote Jan Marks for City Council, janmarks.com. Thank you.
We need a new perspective on SLO City Council. I'm running not only to be part of the solution, but to ensure all are invited to take part in the dialogue as we tackle public safety, homelessness, and economic vitality in SLO. Visit AubrianaTorres.com to learn more.
Your votes matter, and I urge you, when you vote, vote responsibly. Vote to open up our economy. Vote to make our economy flourish. Vote SPECT for City Council. Thank you.
Hello, Cal Poly students. My name is Robin Wolf, and I'm running for SLO City Council. I think our workers and our renters are sorely underrepresented on the city level, and as both, I hope you will consider giving me your vote as we work towards a more inclusive and engaged SLO for all.
My name is Kelly Evans, and I'm running for SLO City Council to ensure that our solutions to economic recovery and the protests of this summer are long-term that enact real change.
So we're just getting more election updates right now, and it looks like Biden is still in the lead with 209 electoral votes over Trump's 118 electoral votes. Now remember, the candidate that wins is going to need 270 electoral votes for victory. The states with the biggest electoral votes are California with 55, Texas with 38, New York and Florida both with 29 each, and Illinois and Pennsylvania with 20 each. Biden is picking up a lot of states here, so we can see he is picking up the important swing states, such as he's currently leading Arizona with 53%. And he is equal, it is always equal. Now, the popular vote doesn't always equal the electoral vote and vice versa. A candidate can win the popular vote like Hillary Clinton did in 2016, but not the electoral vote.
And as you can see, also, a lot of the other states that played a key role in the last election, such as Wisconsin, Michigan, Florida, and Georgia, have not yet been reported or confirmed to belong to one candidate, but we'll keep you updated on that.
And now we have a special word on the Zoom about the election by Mustang news reporter Sophia Silva.
What is up, Mustangs? My name is Sophia Sylvia, and welcome back to Word on the Street meets Word on the Zoom. Even though classes are primarily virtual, there are still a lot of students that are on campus right now. So I thought I'd come to campus and interview the students that are there to get a gauge on whether they're registered to vote and what their overall thoughts are on the election process.
Are you registered to vote this year?
I am. Yes. Of course I am.
Yes.
I'm actually 17, so I can't vote in this election.
Yes. You registered to vote? Yes, I am registered. I do need to finish my ballot. It's actually at home, so I just need to get my parents to send it real fast, and I'll send it in as fast as I can. Why do you think it's really important to vote?
I think it's important to vote because, like, all of our lives are at stake here, and, like, especially, like, other people's lives, like, apart from our own, are at stake.
I mean, I think for me, I, like, am so bummed I can't vote in this election, and I think the biggest part I can play is encouraging other people because, like, if you can vote, I believe that you should be, and you should be exercising that right. And so I think my place as someone who can't vote but is passionate about it is encouraging other people to use the right.
Yeah, I think that, like, every vote makes a difference, even though you're like, oh, it doesn't matter because, like, California is all blue or whatever. Like, I feel like everyone's vote counts.
Definitely just want to see change from what's happening right now. I don't want to get too political, but I want to vote who's in office, out of office, so that's why I'm voting.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to ask, the next question was, who are you voting for? So,
yeah.
Biden. I did vote for Biden. Very proud to have voted for Biden, and you know, he's not my first pick, but he's what we got. So
I voted for Biden.
Joe, baby.
Yeah.
Joe.
Right. And why? Because Trump is a racist.
Trump's
Like-
literally mentally ill.
Really believe in a lot of the things going on with the current administration, so I think she's changed these meetings. Do you have any thoughts on mail-in voting?
I think mail-in voting is essential this year, especially. I think I would feel a little bit better about in-person voting, just personally. But in order to be safe, mail-in voting is also important.
One of the main things that I hear as a worry with this election is whether or not someone's ballot will be counted. I think a lot of people are very worried that their mail-in ballot won't be received in time, or that they'll drop it off to an invalid drop box. And so California actually passed a recent law that mandates that election officials must accept mail-in ballots up to 17 days after Election Day. And so as long as your ballot is postmarked by Election Day, you will be fine. And I think that is a very common worry with students right now. I know I see it everywhere of oh, it's too late for me to turn in my mail-in ballot, but you still can and have it be counted. So I would love for students to know that more, and so they can feel a little more at ease.
Was there anything that you wish was made more clear through the voting process?
Yeah, totally. So the propositions took me the longest, and on the actual ballot, it just gives you, they spell it out in words that I feel like would not be very clear to the average person. I went online and used the California guidelines where it sort of gave you, you're voting yes, you're voting no, what does that mean? So I had to find other resources to explain this to me. So yeah, my biggest takeaway would be make those propositions more clear.
I feel there's some things, because it's my first time voting, a lot of the people here, so I feel I can do a little more research myself, but I wish there may be a few more things on social media that would be more accessible for people.
I think there should be a lot more of an emphasis on the propositions that you're voting for, as well as your local leaders that you're voting for, because I personally live in Carlsbad in Southern California, and I didn't know who any of the candidates were, and it was kind of hard to find information on them. So I think making that a bigger deal, and pushing for education on those smaller topics, because at the end of the day they do affect our small communities. I think that's a big thing that we need to emphasize.
And if you could describe how you think the mood will be on Election Day in one word, what word would you use?
Tense. Very tense.
Chaotic.
Okay, I was just gonna say chaotic and maybe controversial.
Yeah.
Somber. It'll be because I don't think we'll actually know who the president is or any of the major stuff until probably a week or two after, because of all the mail-in votes. So I think it'll just be a lot of tension in the air.
I don't even know.
I just feel I'm gonna be on my toes the whole day.
I think it's gonna be a very emotional day.
And toxic.
Toxic.
Regardless of what way it goes.
Yeah,
I just feel people are gonna be so toxic.
I think it'll be really interesting. I think it'll be a lot of mixed emotions for sure, because I feel there's a lot of strong opinions going into it. So I think I'm excited to see how it all plays out. But yeah, definitely will be. I think tensions will be high. Yeah.
Chaotic. Disaster, but it could be a good disaster. You never know.
Terrifying, regardless of which way it goes. I think there's going to be kind of a lot of uproar from either side of the spectrum. So just hoping everyone stays safe.
I wish I could say hopeful, because I think elections should always bring hope that we're growing as a country. But I truly, when I think about it, I think that our campus overall, the main word would be stressed on Election Day, because I think that so many people are so invested in the election, and they should be. It's very fair. Everyone should always be invested in the election. So I think there's going to be a lot of stressed emotions coming from our campus on November 3rd, and probably every day around that as well.
All right, well, we're going to go ahead and kick into another commercial break, but when we get back, we're going to have Kelly Evans in here with another election update, so stick around.
fire drills give your family a plan of action. In a home fire, you may have less than 2 minutes to get out. So when you drill, show everyone 2 ways out of the house, pick a safe meeting spot, and get there in under 2 minutes. Then practice home fire drills at least twice a year. You can even make them fun. So everyone knows the sound and exactly what to do when they hear a smoke alarm. Go to ready.gov/fire drill and learn how to prepare your family for home fires.
Our hearts are made stronger by how we treat others.
Put her there.
The light you share can impact those around you, but so can the darkness.
Later, twerps! Did Pete saying mean things bother you?
So when you reach out to another person, take a moment to consider how they will feel and let your heart be the key to making a difference. Because of you, someone's entire day, year, or even life can change.
In every heart, there's hope.
Sorry to keep you waiting. Complicated business. Complicated.
What do you think is the biggest domestic issue America faces?
Right now, the biggest domestic issue is our health.
Let me ask you what you think the biggest domestic priority is for you right now.
Well, ultimately, I'll tell you, it was happening. We created the greatest economy in the history of our country, and the other side.
You know that's not true.
Success is going to bring us together. We are on the road to success.
What is on the ballot here is the character of this country: decency, honor, respect, treating people with dignity.
Broadcasting from Mustang News' Swanson studio on Cal Poly's campus and via Zoom, this is Election Night.
Welcome back to Mustang News, covering the 2020 election. I'm Tessa Hughes.
And I'm Garrett Brown. Thank you for staying with us. And for those of you just joining, welcome.
Now with a quick update on the local city council election, we have Adria Pease, the incumbent, up 25%. Jan Marks is up 21%, and Abriana Torres is trailing with 16%. Currently, we are joined with another city council hopeful, Kelly Evans. Hi, Kelly. How are you tonight?
Hi, guys. Not going ideally, of course, but we're here.
So right now we can see that the polls, the mayoral candidate Heidi Harmon is leading. So what is the importance of local politics to you, and especially in the San Luis Obispo County?
Was that to me or to Heidi? Sorry.
I'm so sorry. What's the importance of local politics to you, and especially in San Luis Obispo County? My bad.
Absolutely. Thank you. So as I've said the whole campaign trail, I think that intersectionality in how we affect our politics, how we think about our policy, is incredibly important. We know that our local politicians have more of an effect on our day-to-day life than larger bodies of government do. And so it's really important that we're electing people who we see representing us as individuals, us as groups. Obviously, no demographic is a monolith. And so choosing somebody who represents the values of the various different groups that you align with is really what you should be looking for in a representative. And somebody who doesn't just align with those values, but is willing to really listen to you as residents and work with you to build the town that you want to see built.
So, Kelly, what was your motivation behind running for city council?
I saw space for somebody who understood that economic recovery needed to be people first, and who was going to respond to some of the sort of fabricated divides that our city was facing.
So what kind of change do you want to see in San Luis Obispo?
I think obviously we need to focus on what is happening with our police department. We need to have a lot of conversations about not just race, but diversity in general. And we need to be thinking more thoroughly about what affordable housing really means and how it affects infrastructure, job creation, regional collaboration, just all of the values that the city really has.
So obviously this local election is obviously very important to you, but we've also are in the middle of a national election that's garnering a lot of attention. How do you think the results of tonight's election is going to affect the San Luis Obispo community?
I have some deep hopes that Biden wins, of course, and I don't think that that's looking unlikely. I think that's quite probable, and it's going to be far easier for us to work on things like race relations, especially if we don't have somebody really clearly bigoted in charge of the country.
All right, well, thank you, Kelly. That's actually all the time we have for you, but thank you for stopping by. Now we're actually going to move.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Now we're going to move right on into incumbent mayoral candidate Heidi Harmon.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me.
Hi, thanks for stopping by.
How are you feeling tonight?
I'm feeling great. Actually, I'm here with friends and a lot of the people that have been very committed and concerned to this election. And I'm grateful to see that the results are turning out to be very supportive of a lot of the issues that I've been fighting for.
So currently it looks like Biden is leading the presidential election. What are your thoughts on this?
So, Biden wasn't my candidate, and I'm grateful that he is ahead, of course. We just need to hang on to the very fragile democracy that we have at this point. And I think Biden is clearly the only candidate that can lead us through this challenging moment and create a country and a space for us to engage in a way that's going to make a better country. Otherwise, honestly, I think democracy is so deeply at stake, and so many other things, other values that I think so many of us hold true and hold as essential. So I'm grateful to see Biden in the lead, absolutely.
Now, Heidi, let's come back to you for a second. If you are reelected mayor, what's going to be your first priority?
So there's so many things that are challenging for folks right now. It's hard to prioritize them in that sense because there's so many needs right now. So obviously economic and public health recovery from COVID, certainly more meaningfully engaging with folks that are living unsheltered absolutely has to be prioritized. And I think above all of those specific issues, there is a huge division happening in our community and in our country, and prioritizing ways that we can come back together, I think is actually going to be number one.
So how do you feel that the general election is going to affect the San Luis Obispo community after today?
It's hard to know until we have official results, but it sounds like I think a lot of the Central Coast values have been affirmed in both this local election with my race and at the federal level. And if that continues to be the case, and if those are the final results, I think that people will be comforted and feeling supported in terms of what values I think the Central Coast really has, which is about inclusivity, which is about fiscal responsibility, which is about climate action and affordable housing and healthcare and all of these incredibly important issues. And I think we're seeing a lot of that being affirmed right now here locally and at the national level.
And then Heidi, why do you think local politics are so important?
It's interesting because the federal level gets so much attention, right? But really, we all live at the local level. And local politics is really where we are most impacted, and also where we as community members can have the most impact. And so it's been exciting to see, as challenging as the last 6 months have been, it's also been really exciting to see so many new people coming into the local conversation. And so I think that we can all count on having a very robust community conversation about a lot of the issues that we've been discussing in the last few months. And local politics is really where we live, and local politics is really where it's at in terms of also creating change, even on these incredibly big, a national or international issues like climate action, like racial justice, like income inequality. We are making those decisions and those policies here right in San Luis Obispo. So it absolutely matters. The local level is really where impact happens.
So it sounds like it's kind of busy behind you. Who are the supporters that are there with you tonight in person and via Zoom?
So we have it's been an awkward time, of course, to have a campaign gathering, but we do have some essential workers here tonight, and some folks, and also some of the students that have been involved in some of the local engagement recently. And so we have a very small but very engaged group here tonight.
Do you think it's going to be a late night for you waiting for the results?
I'm such an early to bed, early to rise person, no matter what's happening. So I don't know how late I'll stay up. I mean, I'm trusting the community and trusting this country to do the right thing. So it's looking good, I think, for this community and this country. So I'm hoping that this might be one of the first good night's sleep I've had in a long time. I can tell you that I've already had several communications and texts in the last 15 minutes of folks that are also saying that they feel very relieved and are going to get a good night's sleep tonight.
All right, well, thank you, Mayor Harman, and best of luck to you.
Thank you both so much.
Now we're going to move on to a quick update for the national election going on. According to the Washington Post, at this exact moment, Biden is up 223 to 145 on President Donald Trump. If we take a look here at the Electoral College map, not a lot of huge surprises so far. What is interesting is a lot of the key battleground states we'd mentioned earlier in the show have not yet been decided, such as Georgia, Florida, and Texas, all of which carry a lot of electoral votes. Also, North Carolina, which is vital for both Trump and Joe Biden, both has been undecided. As of right now, Trump is winning in North Carolina by about 2%. A lot of the key swing states in the Great Lake area, such as Michigan and Wisconsin, are yet to be reported, even though they play a key role in the election. Michigan and Wisconsin are both leaning Trump, but Minnesota is currently leaning Biden.
Now we're going to toss it back to Kylie Smith at the San Luis Obispo County Clerk's Office. Kylie, how is it going over there still?
Hello, Tessa. Once again, I am live from the San Luis Obispo County Clerk's Building. And right behind me, you can see there are about 10 volunteers counting ballots, and their Tommy Gong is handing out by hand these boxes of ballots. And it's pretty mellow. Nobody's passed out from being too tired yet, but there are 3 drop-off by mail locations in San Luis Obispo, right here at the county clerk's office where I currently am standing, Kennedy Library at Cal Poly's campus, and the Department of Social Services on Higuera Street. However, in all of San Luis Obispo, there are about 42 drop-off locations, and we are also seeing 23 other polling locations, but that is a decrease from 4 years ago when there was over 70 polling locations. And I also want to update you on some of the propositions from SLO County that we have received published results from on slowcounty.org's website. You can visit slowvote.com to keep updated with our team, which is funding for stem cell research, which is ahead with no, voting 53.8% voting no, and then Prop 16, which allows diversity as a factor in public employment, is also no, is ahead at 63.6% voting no, and Prop 22 exempts app-based transportation and delivery companies, and that is ahead with yes, and 61% are actually voting yes, while 30. Again, I am here live at the San Luis Obispo County Clerk's Office, and I'll be here until 10 p.m. with more updates as they come in. Thank you, and Kylie Smith here with Mustang News. Back to you, Chestnut here at the desk.
All right, thanks again, Kylie. So back to the presidential election. Back in 2016, before Donald Trump won and became the president-elect and eventual president, Politico published a piece on why vice presidential picks are not as influential as voters may think. They went on to analyze voting patterns and the influence of home state advantage when selecting a presidential running mate, and how it's often thought is that it is a smart move to choose a VP that is from a competitive or close voting state. Well, through their analysis, it was shown that these preconceived notions carry no true weight. When it comes to who votes for who and the selection of the vice president, overall is less significant than most assume. However, in this election, eyes are on the VPs more than usual. And no, it's not because Kamala Harris would become the first black, first Asian, and first female vice president. It is because, and no, it's not because Mike Pence actually had that fly on his head.
It is actually because whoever wins tonight will be the oldest president sworn in history. President Trump currently holds the title as he was 70 years old on his inauguration day back in 2017, and he will maintain that title if he wins again tonight. However, if Biden wins tonight when inaugurated, he will be 77 years old, making him the oldest president in our country's history. Despite Biden's 3-year seniority over Trump, both men are getting up there in age, and their health and livelihood seem to always be taken note of. Considering they would both be the oldest to assume the position, the likelihood of one of them passing away while still holding office is higher than past presidents based on age alone. For this reason, there has been more attention on the vice presidential candidates because they also, in line with that notion, have a higher likelihood of becoming president sometime over the next 4 years than past vice presidents. Nearly 60 million viewers tuned in to watch Pence and Harris go head-to-head in their debate in October, making it the second most watched vice presidential debate in history, according to NBC News, trailing behind Biden and Sarah Palin's debate back in 2008. The staggering spike in viewership comes after a measly 37 million watched the 2016 VP debate and was shocking considering the fact that ratings dropped for both the Republican and Democratic national conventions, and viewership for Biden and Trump's first debate was low in comparison to Trump and Hillary Clinton's first debate back in 2016.
The first debate was on September 19th and was held in Cleveland, Ohio, and discussed 6 main topics, including the Supreme Court, COVID, the economy, racism, and violence in the U.S., climate change, and the integrity of the election. Now, since that first debate, Amy Coney Barrett joined the Supreme Court. Barrett began her role just 1 week before today after a rushed appointment, but is not the shortest time for a justice to ever be confirmed. That record belongs to Justice John Paul Stevens, who was confirmed in 1975 in just 19 days. The nomination was also very partisan. Barrett's nomination marks the first time in 151 years a Supreme Court justice nomination received 0 votes from the minority party in the Senate.
Barrett's appointment is to succeed the late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Now, this caused controversy because of the different views that these two women held. Despite Coney Barrett praising her predecessor as a woman of enormous talent and consequence, Bader Ginsburg was seen as a liberal judge, and Coney Barrett is not. Now, the now 6-3 conservative to liberal bench could change a myriad of laws in America and on a number of issues, including abortion and the potential overturning of Roe versus Wade.
Given the majority of conservative judges now on the court, Republicans are afraid that if Joe Biden wins, he will pack the Supreme Court so he would be able to add more liberal judges. Biden has since said in an interview with 60 Minutes that if elected, he will consider doing a national commission to study the Supreme Court system. He said it would not be about the court packing. What he envisions would be a bipartisan group of constitutional scholars who would, after 180 days, make a recommendation to reform the court system, which Biden currently believes is not functioning correctly. Whereas President Trump, having nominated 3 of the current sitting judges, wants to keep the court system as is.
The idea of court packing was brought up in the first presidential debate. Since then, the second debate focused on other issues such as leadership, fighting COVID, American families, race in America, national security, and climate change. We're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we'll have more on election updates for you.
Hey, Dad, I need your help asking Jessica to prom.
Of course. Love is like the ocean. You have to tread the
Oh,
waters.
Dad, that's not the kind of help I needed. Hey, Jessica. Will you go to prom with me?
Yes.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care can't wait to share their first with you. Hey, Dad, I need your help asking Jessica to prom.
Of course. Love is like the ocean. You have to tread the
Oh,
waters.
Dad, that's not the kind of help I needed. Hey, Jessica. Will you go to prom with me?
Yes.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care can't wait to share their first with you.
This is the story of a boy who was very sensitive to lights and sounds. So he built secret hiding places where nothing could get in. The boy didn't like looking people in the eye. It made him feel uncomfortable. One day, he found out he had something called autism. His family got him help, and slowly, he learned how to live with it better.
Early intervention can make a lifetime of difference. Learn the signs at autismspeaks.org.
Welcome back to Mustang News coverage. We have some updates here for you on what's been going around in the national election. Biden is still leading the electoral votes with a 213 lead and is also leading the popular votes by nearly 56 million voters. That said, as we can see right here on the Mustang News website, which has been doing election coverage all night, we have the graph here with the popular vote, and Biden is still leading by about 56 million votes. In other news, with the California propositions, as we can see here, the Proposition 16 for affirmative action still has a pretty notable lead in the direction of no. Moving on to the national election, give me 1 second here just to double check all this. It's still a lot of the big states we talked about earlier that we don't have a result out of yet, including Florida, Georgia, Texas, Pennsylvania, and North Carolina. All the ones I just listed are currently showing that Donald Trump does have the lead, but none of them are confirmed at this point. In the meantime, Minnesota did just get reported that it is going in favor of Joe Biden, and Minnesota's 10 electoral votes, bringing his lead now to 223.
Now, in more presidential coverage, just to reiterate what the Electoral College is and how it works, here is Matthew Bornhorst.
One of the biggest stories in 2016 centered around the fact that Donald Trump lost the popular vote by 3 million votes, yet still became the president. This was only possible due to a quirk in the way that Americans choose their president. You've probably seen maps like these, with each state colored in red or blue with how they vote. This map doesn't show an overall count of how individuals voted. Instead, it's a map of the Electoral College. The US is unique in that it elects its national leader indirectly through the Electoral College, where each state is given delegates based off of representation in Congress, who then cast votes for president. There's 435 representatives, 100 senators, and 3 votes for DC, giving us 538 total electors. So each state gets 2 votes for each senator and a number based off of the number of House representatives they have. So California, with a large population, has 53 House representatives and 2 senators, giving it 55 delegates. Whereas smaller states like Wyoming and Vermont, with their small populations only having 1 representative each, still get 3 votes. And this gets us to some unequal representation. California, with its large population, has about 700,000 people per electoral college votes, whereas a state like Wyoming, with only 600,000 people in the state as a whole, still gets 3 delegates. All states then have a general election where they decide the party that will cast their electoral college votes. This is the election that happens on November 3rd. And what those maps show, these electoral college votes are not given proportionally. Instead, all states except for Maine and Nebraska have a winner-take-all system, in which the winner of the state's general election wins all of the electoral votes for that state. Maine and Nebraska give theirs out proportionally, based off of the general election. These electoral votes are cast by a panel of electors, which each party decides. So when you're voting for president, you're not really voting for a candidate, but the party that they're running for, who then sends their delegates to the Electoral College. This Electoral College actually happens sometime in December, when the president actually gets decided. So the election is never decided on election night anyway. Anytime that a news organization declares a winner, it's just based off of their projections. So what is the role of the Electoral College today? Well, proponents of the Electoral College say that it avoids the tyranny of the majority, arguing that the voices of the people in small states like Wyoming or Vermont won't be drowned out by large states like California. They also argue that it encourages coalition building, forcing candidates to gain broad support from all sides. But opponents of this system say that it doesn't help with any of these issues. They argue that the election only comes down to a handful of swing states, where the vote is close enough each election to matter to candidates. This means a small handful of states decide each election. In 2016, 2/3 of all campaign events happened in just 6 states, and Donald Trump spent 94% of his campaign in just 12. And that's going without mentioning some of the more extreme examples of what can happen in the Electoral College. Outside of 2016, there have been 4 other presidents who have been elected without winning the popular vote. And the Electoral College can actually be won with just 23% of the popular vote by winning a bare majority in the smallest states, thanks to the winner-take-all system. Proponents of the Electoral College also argue that it requires geographic diversity for the presidency, saying that candidates also must target many types of voters and can't just focus on population centers. However, the Electoral College can also be won by winning the 11 most populous states. And there's nothing about the Electoral College which requires geographic diversity. It's just happened that way. Even though support for the Electoral College has been waning since the 60s, it's still written in the Constitution. But people have been trying to subvert the Electoral College from within. 16 states, including California, controlling 196 electoral votes, have signed the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact, which has them pledging their electoral votes to the candidate who wins the popular vote, regardless of how their state votes. But this plan will only go into effect once they have a majority in the Electoral College, meaning 270 votes. So it could be a while. The Electoral College adds an extra step into how your vote gets counted. But even if you're in a deep red or a deep blue state where it doesn't seem like your vote will matter for the presidency, the election still matters because there's a lot more to the ballot than just the presidential race. So your vote still matters. So get out and vote.
Do have a line, so as soon as you say it, I'll just start going.
So right now, we're going to head into a local update in the mayoral race. We can see that Heidi Harmon is up 54%, and then Sweeney is up 32%. Marshall Eminger is trailing with 12%, and Donald Hedrick has 1%. Now, if Heidi Harmon wins this election, this will be her third term as San Luis Obispo's mayor.
We took a look at some of the propositions on the California ballot earlier, such as Prop 16 and 17. 16 is currently leading in the numbers, and 17 is currently leading with a majority vote for yes. In addition, Prop 22 is sitting at 57.4% yes. Proposition 22 is sort of a big deal right now because the rise of app-based delivery services such as Uber Eats and DoorDash. As we all know, you can't go out to eat right now. It seems to me that more people are willing to order online during the coronavirus, and a yes on the vote would mean that these app-based rideshare services and delivery companies could hire drivers as independent contractors. Therefore, they could decide when, where, and how much to work, but they would not get standard benefits and provisions that businesses typically provide employees, such as healthcare and stuff like that.
No vote on this, however, would mean that these companies would have to hire drivers as employees. Drivers would have less choice about their working schedule, but would be given standard benefits and protections that businesses must provide employees.
Now we're going to go ahead and take a look at Biden's opening statements from earlier today.
It's going to go long, but who knew we're going to go into maybe tomorrow morning, maybe even longer. But look, we feel good about where we are. We really do. I'm here to tell you tonight, we believe we're on track to win this election. Yes. We knew because of the unprecedented early vote and the mail-in vote that it's going to take a while. We're going to have to be patient until the hard work of tallying the votes is finished. And it ain't over till every vote is counted, every ballot is counted. But we're feeling good. We're feeling good about where we are. We believe one of the nets has suggested we've already won Arizona, but we're confident about Arizona. That's a turnaround. We also just called it for Minnesota, and we're still in the game in Georgia, although that's not one we expected. And we're feeling real good about Wisconsin and Michigan. And by the way, it's going to take time to count the votes. We're going to win Pennsylvania. Yes. I've been talking to the folks in Philly, Allegheny County, Scranton, and they're really encouraged by the turnout and what they see. Look, you know, we can know the results as early as tomorrow morning, but it may take a little longer. As I've said all along, it's not my place or Donald Trump's place to declare who's won this election. That's the decision of the American people. But I'm optimistic about this outcome. And I want to thank every one of you who came out and vote in this election. And by the way, Chris Coons and the Democrats, congratulations here in Delaware.
John Carney.
Pardon me?
John Carney.
Hey, John, the Gov, yeah, the whole team, man. You've done a great job. I'm grateful to the poll workers, to our volunteers, our canvassers, everyone who participated in this democratic process. And I'm grateful to all of my supporters here in Delaware and all across the nation. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
In breaking news, one of the bigger states will have an influence on this election. Florida has just been called in favor of Donald Trump.
Now we're going to take a quick 2-minute break, but then we'll be right back with more election night coverage.
Leah, did you put a new dent in that?
This one? No.
Were you texting and driving again?
Yes.
Hi, Leah.
Hi, Dad.
Sorry about your bumper.
I was 0.5 credits away from completing high school, and I didn't do it. My support team never stopped pushing for me to be better because they knew who I could become as a person. I've been given an opportunity, and I'm just thankful for it.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
Eva Marie smoked 12,000 packs of cigarettes over 15 years. She quit, and now there's a new lung cancer screening that could save her life. You stopped smoking. Now start screening. No matter how much you smoked, early detection could save you. Talk to your doctor or learn more at savedbythescan.org.
Welcome back to Mustang News' election night coverage. As we just mentioned, Florida just was announced in favor of Donald Trump, and we're going to go ahead and give you another quick update on how the states are breaking down. So it's also been reported that Idaho and Utah are also going in favor of Donald Trump, as you can see here. On top of that, though, we still do not have a result out of the Great Lakes states, that all of which are going to carry a lot of electoral votes. So Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota. But Florida going for Trump, that's definitely a big deal. Florida's played a key part in a lot of the last couple of elections, and usually it's one of the last ones announced. Our map is actually not updated. It literally just broke a couple minutes ago. So, yeah, we're hoping to get that fixed. But one of the key states that I'm sure a lot of Republicans were counting on that hasn't been called yet because of how close it is the state of Texas, which traditionally is a very Republican state.
Currently, it looks like Donald Trump is leading Texas with 52% of the votes, with Biden having 46% of the votes, but we will see only 91% of Texas has been counted.
So as it stands right now, the Electoral College count stands at 223 in favor of Biden, but Trump, having just gotten that big boost from Florida, is now sitting at 174.
So we have protests have been continuing in San Luis Obispo since the death of George Floyd when he was killed by police in Minneapolis. One of the most recent demonstrations was on October 22nd, when Tiana Rado was joined in court by her 3 new co-defendants, Marcus Montgomery, Amon Osfa, and Joshua Powell, who were charged with misdemeanors for participating in a local Black Lives Matter protest on July 21st. The hearing was continued until December 3rd, when all 4 activists will appear in court again.
Now, with that said, we're going to go ahead and kick it back over to Mustang News reporter Kylie Smith, who's down at the City Council. Kylie?
Hello, welcome back to the San Luis Obispo County Clerk's Office. I am here live, and if you want to follow me this way, I just want to show you
where everybody is bringing in the ballots, and then they're getting a police escort to deliver the ballots to Clark Reporter's office, Tommy Gong. Then over here, if you direct your attention this way, because of COVID-19, they're not allowed in there, but they are counting the ballots, which Tommy Gong is hand delivering to the 10 volunteers. Now, they estimate that there's about 5,000 votes still waiting to be counted. There's about 110,000 already in, and it is pretty mellow, as you can see. There's not as much hustle as bustle as there was earlier. It is very much calming down. They expect to be here till around 11 p.m. tonight counting. And with that, that's all I have for an update right now. With Mustang News, I'm Kylie Smith. Back to you, Tessa and Garrett at the desk.
Thank you, Kylie. Now we're going to come at you with the U.S. Senate election results. So far, 45 Democrats have claimed seats in the Senate and 46 Republicans. Greg Gianforte, Republican, won the governor's race in Montana most recently, and there are 9 remaining Senate seats up for grabs. Both sides have flipped one seat tonight in this race.
Yeah, and some big names both also have lost and won tonight so far. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell did maintain his nomination in his home state of Kentucky, actually winning 97% of the vote. That was coming in tonight supposed to be a close election, and apparently not so much. Other notable names, Lindsey Graham maintained his lead in his home state of South Carolina, but John Hickenlooper actually flipped the state of Colorado, winning a Senate seat out of Colorado. In other races that haven't been called yet, Mark Kelly leads the state of Arizona by 75% of the popular vote. In Maine, Suzanne Collins is also maintaining a lead. Some of the closer races, John James, the Republican from Michigan, is currently leading, but by only 58% of the vote. And in a Senate race, that could definitely be changed like that.
So we are going to take a quick break, and then we're going to head into the last few minutes of election coverage tonight on Mustang News. Stay tuned.
Awkward. I'm the awkward silence. You try to avoid me, then there I am again.
But an awkward silence can be a great thing.
Like Kelly here is about to demonstrate.
You haven't really been yourself lately. Are you okay?
Find out how you can help a friend with their mental health at seizetheawkward.org.
See on page 4 that the projections need to be earthquake next Thursday.
Seriously? Thursday? Can't do that.
This is really inconvenient.
I have yoga that day. I have no time for this. So.
I can't do Thursday, but I can do Friday.
Disasters don't plan ahead. You can. Talk to your loved ones about how you're going to be ready in an emergency. Don't wait. Communicate.
Hey, Bobo, do trees tell each other stories?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, why don't we go find out? Listen.
Can birds draw pictures?
I don't have an answer for that.
Dad, do stars visit their friends?
Look!
Welcome back to the last minutes of our show. We are in the last minutes, but here's what we're seeing so far. So as you can see on the election map, it's actually kind of hard to see right now, but the state of Hawaii has been announced for Joe Biden. That's 4 electoral votes going in his favor. Let me just... local update, in local news though, the numbers are staying pretty much where we last updated you for. Still waiting on some of the updates from some of the bigger states that will have a role in deciding the winner of this election. We've been mentioning the Great Lakes states ad nauseum so far. Still waiting for a result out of them. Also still waiting for a result out of Georgia and North Carolina, both of which will play a key role in deciding the winner of this election. Trump is still holding on to a narrow lead in both.
Yes, in Georgia, he is leading with 52.9% and about 2.2 million votes. And in North Carolina, he's leading with 50.1% with about 2.7 million of the votes. He's also still leading in Texas, Wisconsin. Biden is leading in Minnesota, though, with a 54.3%, with Donald Trump trailing with 43.7% in Minnesota. And then it looks like Donald Trump is also leading in Michigan and Pennsylvania with 56.6% of the votes.
And as you can see, our map is not quite updated yet. We still don't have Florida and some of the other states. But this just in, the Associated Press is announcing that Ohio is expected to go to Donald Trump.
And then it looks like Arizona, which was going to be one of the swing states in this election, it's been leaning towards Biden all night with 53.1% is his lead. And then Nevada, only 5 was another swing state, and it had that extension tonight with voting. Only 5% reported, but currently Donald Trump is leading Nevada.
And that said, the only state that we currently do not have any sort of information which way it's leaning is Alaska, which, keep in mind, is the last state to close polls. They will actually still be going until this show ends at 10 o'clock. That said, we are receiving words that Joe Biden is starting to pull away in Minnesota. He's up about 10%, whereas in the other states nearby, Trump is up in Michigan and Wisconsin by about 5% in each.
Missouri and Iowa are both red right now. As we are we're just updating you as we get the coverage.
Actually, the Associated Press is currently calling Missouri for Donald Trump. So that's 10 more electoral votes going Donald Trump's way. Again, this is all just as we're getting it. So if you're hearing from another source something different, that's entirely possible. But right now, we do have Joe Biden at 223 electoral votes to Trump's 174. Keep in mind, Texas, Georgia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, all of which carry a lot of weight in the Electoral College, are all currently leaning Donald Trump. Some by a bigger margin, some by a very slim margin, like North Carolina, where it's only 2%.
We're also still waiting on Maine, which is one of the first polling places that did close today. About 50% of the votes are reported there, and Biden is leading. It only has 4 electoral votes, but Biden is leading with a 50.9% in that state.
Also, we're finally getting news out of Nevada, which we made mention to earlier in the show, that they are having a longer voting period in Clark County, which is one of the more heavily populated counties in the whole state. It seems that Donald Trump is up big right now, 71% to Joe Biden's 26.6%.
And then, according to the New York Times, Trump did have his first tweet of the night came out tonight as Biden was making his remarks earlier. It was a sign he was glued to the TV. He said, "We are up big and will continue to cast doubt on the election results." And Trump has said, he has tweeted out after that he will be making a statement shortly, too, tonight.
Hold on, just give us 1 second. We're just trying to make sure we get all this right. So you're actually currently right now, this is a live feed from just outside of the White House. As you can see, it's fenced up. There are also people, obviously it looks like protesters starting to gather outside of the White House in lieu of the election results.
Regardless of who wins tonight, it was expected to see some type of civil unrest or type of political demonstration, given how polarizing this election and this election year has been.
Well, as we're nearing the end, we feel that it is again important to stress how this election is weird in a lot of ways. We probably won't have the final tally of votes until probably later than midnight tonight due to the large amount of votes, the record amount of votes, as well as mail-in votes. This isn't unheard of. In the 2012 election, the final tally didn't come in until 2:30 in the morning the next day. However, many experts say it could take much longer than that this year, per the Washington Post.
While some states started counting ballots prior to today, several states, including some key swing states such as Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, took their time. And to keep in mind, voting is still going on in states like Alaska. So we are nearing the end of the show, so let's take a look one last time at the polls. Now, none of this information is an official indicator of who has won the election, but it does give us a good idea of where the votes are going to be leaning tonight. So if we look at the map, we can see that Biden is winning with 213 electoral votes, and Donald Trump has... Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I am Tessa Hughes.
And I'm Garrett Brown. Please follow Mustang News. More coverage at mustangnews.net. And have a great rest of your Thursday night.